Welcome to Christian Conversations with Pastor Mensa Otabil.
Welcome to Christian Conversations. I'm Pastor Mensa Otabil. It's a joy always to have you in this conversation. We're talking about worship today. Worship is an integral part of the Christian life, especially when we go to church. We do things that we call worship. And today we'll explore all of those and what it means to us and how to get it done as well as possible. I have Pastor Albert Okram with me of ICGC, the New Wine Temple, and he's going to join in the conversation. Pastor Albert, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. So, Doc, let's start with worship. It's variously described, but scripturally, what exactly is worship?
It's a very broad concept, but simply worship would be offering of something of value to someone you honor and doing it with a sense of devotion to that person. That would broadly be seen as worship.
What will be the components if you say worship, offer something that is worthy to honor someone? What can we offer?
We offer first ourselves to God in a Christian context. We mean offering to God. So the primary offering we give to God is the totality of who we are. But sometimes we give particular aspects of ourselves to God. We give of our hands to Him. We give of our heart to Him. We give of our lips to Him, our tongue to Him, our thoughts to Him, our earnings to Him. So it is the totality of the offering given of yourself to Him, but then there are particular aspects of ourselves that we can also offer to God.
So, from what you described, typically the Christian would refer to worship as that slow tempo music that is sung in the course of the service. What you're saying is that it goes beyond the song to encompass much more than the music or some aspect of our worship.
The singing is a worship, but it is not all of worship. It is an expression of worship. Because when we sing, it is ourselves, it is the person singing, and the person singing something constructive, something beautiful to God. So it is part of the offering of yourself, but you're expressing it with beauty. You're expressing with something that is elegant. You're expressing it with your words, and your words composed in a beautiful way. And that's what singing is. So it's part of yourself being offered to God, but it is expressed through this beautiful melody.
Can a person sing very passionately in a church service and yet still not offer themselves to God?
Yes, I think so. When God dealt with Israel, one of the problems that He had with them, and He pointed out to them, is that sometimes they would do extravagant things. They will offer a lot of animals and cattle and so on. And God will say to them, you offer it, but your heart is so far away from me. In other words, you're doing things that should normally be seen as worship, but it's not you. Your heart is not in it. You are not involved in it. It's not coming from something that you have really thought about to offer. You're just doing it, a gesture. And in that sense, you're doing something that should normally be worship, but it's not worship because it's not heartfelt.
Why does God call on us to worship Him?
I think God calls us to love Him and to devote ourselves to Him because He's devoted Himself to us. And devoting of ourselves to Him is a response to what He has already given to us. First of all, he has given us existence. Without him, there will be no existence. We will not exist. And we owe our existence to him. He is our creator. He has given us not just existence, but the things that makes life viable. He created us upon earth, and earth is a viable planet. We were not created on Mercury or Venus. We wouldn't have survived to even consider whether we can worship or not. So for the God who created us and who gives us a viable environment to live in, he tells us, what I want from you for all that I've given to you is that you commit to me, that you would make living for me part of your endeavor in life. Is actually your uttermost endeavor in life. So God wants us to love him, and he tells us to love him, and he tells us that we must love him with everything that is within us, with all our heart, our might, and our bodies. So that's what he expects from us.
You use the word love. You use the word heart. Would worship be a reflection of the relationship that we have with God?
Worship is a love expression. People do it in normal ways. When we love people, we express it. We give them. We don't do it much in Ghana, but people give flowers. Yes. We give gifts. We write letters. We write beautiful words. We write poems. And if we are up to it, we compose songs. A lot of the beauty of this world were things that were done by people in expression of love. Buildings that were built as expressions of love, songs that were composed as expressions of love, poems, novels that are written. All of these things are expressions, quote unquote, of worship, but worship of man to man. Now, we take some of these elements of worship we use at the human level, and we escalate them to a higher level to God. And that becomes more profound when we do it, especially in a church, when we give that worship to God.
So when we do, does it change God's heart, or does it position our hearts to relate better to him?
God created us without us asking. In other words, God did not respond to us for him to make us. He didn't respond to us for him to create the world. So if you look at all the things God has done without anybody telling him to do, then you see that our worship is not giving to make him do something. After all, he created without us praying and worshiping him. He created us without us worshiping him. So the question then is, if he could do all of these things and he is who he is without our worship, why is worship necessary? Worship is necessary as reciprocation, as a thank you, as us responding to what he has done. We don't generate an action from God through worship, but we respond to his actions through worship.
Let's touch on posture. Posture. Does posture matter?
Well, yes, it does. I mean, if somebody wants to say, I love you, if you're telling your wife, I love you, but you're screaming it and your fists are tight and your face is squeezed, but the words are nice, there's going to be a dissonance. There's going to be something that is not right. Your posture and your words are not saying the right things. So when you want to thank people, you take a posture of thanksgiving. If you want, in our culture, for example, somebody does something that is so great for you, people would go and thank the person, and sometimes they would even kneel to thank the person. It doesn't mean that the kneeling makes the thanks efficacious, but the kneeling it is your posture, your actions now coming into agreement with your words. And so when we worship God, there are postures we take. When we want to surrender to God, we lift up our hands and we say, Lord, I love you, or I surrender to you with an uplifted hand. So at that time, your words and your actions are going together. So when you're singing to God, you don't sing as if you are angry with him. You sing joyfully because your posture and your words are going together.
Talking about the congruence you just described, I read a report somewhere that said that in communication that involves emotion, the words form as little as 7% of the communication. The body language, the look in the eyes, the tone of voice, and other things communicate far more. Can we translate that also into our worship?
I believe so. People would lie prostrate before somebody they honor culturally. And we augment that when we are talking to God. It may not be physically lying down prostrate, but somehow in your heart, you almost feel like you are prostrate before God. It's a heart attitude first before it's a physical attitude. And you're not always going to have the chance to physically demonstrate this, especially in public worship. In your own private home, there may be actions you can take in worship that you can't take, for example, in a church service, because it's public, there's other people there. You don't want to inconvenience other people. Everybody's worshiping the same God. You don't want your actions to stop somebody's action from taking place. But when you are alone, you can kneel, you can lie prostrate, you can scream, whatever you want to do, because it's just you and you're not interfering with anybody. But in public worship, there are actions that we take that has to also be measured, so that it doesn't infringe on others and doesn't stop others from expressing their love to God.
So let's stay with this a bit. So it means that a person can have personal moments of worship at home,
Yes.
at work, anywhere
Yes.
that they are.
Yes. Worship is one of those things you can do, like prayer, you can do as an individual, and you can do it in a corporate body. And the Bible talks about it, worshiping in the congregation, but we also worship early in the morning will I seek you, O Lord. And that is just an individual, just praying, and I worship you in the midst of the congregation. That's the individual worshiping with other worshipers. So we do both of that.
Do we sometimes find ourselves emphasizing one at the expense of the other?
It could be, but we must do both. Worshiping in the congregation tends to be richer, because it is people doing the same thing. There is a multiplied effect when people are doing the same thing. It's like people praying together. It's a multiplied effect. There is a corporate nature of it. There's a cohesive nature of it. So when we pray as individuals, it's great and it has its power. But when we do it in a congregation, whether we're praying, we're worshiping, we're singing, just the dynamism. When you read the Bible, it says in heaven, as they sang, the voice is like the sound of rivers, many waters. It's just this cascading, grand expression of a crowd saying the same thing to one God. And I think that's the power of the corporate worship.
As you describe it, I'm just thinking about the situation where somebody in church, at the time of deep congregational worship, will take out their phone and make a call, get distracted, is looking around. Does it matter?
It does matter. I think there are practices that intrude from our normal life into church. And one of the things that is intruding now is because the phone is now ubiquitous. We use the phone for many things. We don't just use it for phone calls, but we use it to take notes. We use it to read the Bible. We use it to receive emails. We use it to text people. So many things can take place when you have the phone or your iPad. So one of the disciplines a modern Christian must have is the discipline of using his device strictly for the purpose of church when he's in church. So if you're using your device as your Bible and as your notebook, then you stick with it. You don't go to the device and scroll and take a message and respond to a message and things like that. You have to. It's part of worship. It's part of worship. It's part of devotion. If you are in church service, the worship time is not the time you're singing alone. The worship time is the totality of this devoted time. So if it's a 2-hour time, 1 hour time, 3-hour time, you say that I've devoted this time for God and nothing must come between it. I think the worship starts from that point, that devoted time. And devoted in mind, in purpose, in action. This is God's time. And the way we devote the time to Him is the way we worship Him. You know, sometimes even in church, you see people let's say they are worshiping, but then attention will shift and they will look at something else, and it's not a devoted time. They get distracted, or they are praying, but they are involved in something else. Some are scrolling their phone and they are praying. It's not a devoted time. For it to be worship, it has to be a devoted time. It is set aside for God.
Is there a correlation between this devotion and reverence?
Yes, because worship is reverencing. Worship is a high form of respect you show a person. Of course, I mean, if we go to the presence of somebody whose position requires respect, even if we don't respect the person, you know, let's say you're before the president of your country. You may not like the president. You didn't vote for him or her, but you are before this august person. He occupies the number one spot in your country. Just because his office requires respect, you're not going to go in with your phone and when you are in there be scrolling or doing something else. No, you're going to devote your time, your attention to what is happening in that moment. And this is for somebody you may not even like. What of the one who created you, whom you say you love? Then you cannot be in his presence and at the same time be doing something else.
In John chapter 4, Jesus spoke about worshiping in spirit and in truth. What does that mean?
If you look at the context of the question, the woman of Samaria is asking about physical locations for worship. He's asking whether Jerusalem is the place to worship or Mount Gerizim in Samaria is a place to worship. And Jesus says, really, it's not about the spot, the physical spot. It is a heart condition. Though God is looking for people who can worship Him anywhere with the devotion that people have in sports. And that's a very profound statement. Jesus says, you don't even just wait to go to a certain location to say, oh, this is a holy place, I must worship God. He says, your heart must be that holy place. And whenever you devote time to worship me with the devotion you will give to Jerusalem or to a mountain or to a church or to wherever you think worship must take place. It's a heart thing. It's a spirit thing. It's from within you.
From your position as a pastor, what happens when a person learns to really engage worship meaningfully, deeply, and devotedly?
When we worship in church, we sing songs. And most likely, the songs were not composed by us. These are words somebody spoke, just like the Psalms. David or somebody wrote them. We didn't write them. It's like buying a birthday card with words written in it. You didn't write the words, but somehow, when you are sending the card, I do that. If I'm sending a card, I have to read the card and the words in the card. And I have to ensure that whilst I'm signing, I am saying these words. So I didn't just pick a card and sign it, but I must own the words. The same way when we come to church and we are worshiping, we didn't compose the songs, but we have to now own the words of the song. And we have to sing the words as our adoration to God. And I pay a lot of attention to the words of songs. I pay so much attention to them, especially the hymns. I pay attention to the poetry, to the intention, to the color of the words, to the expression of the words, to the sentiments, to the allusions, to the metaphors it uses. I pay attention to all of that because this is what I'm saying to God. You see, and I must be saying this to God. Even if the word is written in another person's culture, like you sing a song like Great is Your Faithfulness, and then it says summer and winter, springtime and harvest. I don't have summer and winter and springtime and harvest, but I understand the writer and why he's using the seasons of time, summer, winter, springtime, harvest, and he's talking about as the seasons change. My seasons will be dry and rainfall and harmattan, but I understand the sentiment. So when I'm singing it, although the person composing it spoke about things happening in his culture, I own that expression that it is talking about the unchangeableness of God. So I sing it with meaning because those words are my words, that the God I worship is faithful no matter the seasons of life. And so it's important to pay attention to the words. A lot of our local choruses also have the same. You have to pay attention. What is the sentiment that this song is expressing? And how do I own the sentiment about a God who is faithful, a God who is good, a God who turns things around, a God who is the God of my breakthrough? You don't just sing them from your lips. You have to sing them from your heart and from your mind. We have to own the songs we sing in worship.
It means you must be very present, fully present.
You have to be very present. You have to be present and endeavor to also use postures that are in alignment with your words. You cannot sing a word that says, I bow to you, Lord, and you're standing still. Or you can say, I kneel to you. You may not kneel, but at least bow your knee, genuflect, do something to show, I understand this word. Or I love you, Lord. You can say, I love you, Lord, with tenderness, and your hands are stiff by you. So you have to embody the words of your song. You have to ensure that as you're singing with meaning, your posture, it could be micro actions. It may not be major. It may not be rolling on the floor, but you are mimicking those words with your bodily actions.
Let's talk about the kind of celebration that involves instrumental music, even rappers dancing, choreography. Sometimes it scares the very conservative and they struggle to relate to that extravagant expression. Would you like to speak to that?
It's all our history. There was a time people feel that, let God is in his holy temple, let everything be silent. But, the portrayals we have in the Bible doesn't show that when we are in the presence of God, everything is silent. There are moments when we are silent in the presence of God. And I think if there is anything charismatics must learn is how to sometimes be silent in the presence of God. But we must not be silent at the expense of extravagant worship. So both take place. So I would say, some people can't stand huge sound productions, and I can understand that. It can be overwhelming to the senses, to people, but it's also an aspect of worship. And so it's graded. There are grades of worship, and we can go through all of the grades. Just words alone, minimal worship, to grand operations. And I like huge productions. I like orchestras. I like it big. I like worship to be extravagant, with dance, with music, with smoke machines, with everything. It has to take place. Because the more I read the Bible, I see extravagance in that way. Can you imagine if you were in the tabernacle of David, the sacrifices are taking place. So an animal is being sacrificed. So there is smoke in the air. It's not a smoke machine, but it's a smoke machine. And you know, and the lights are on. Yeah, it will be candles, but it's lights. And there is trumpet, and there is tambourines, and there is harp. So there's wind instrument, there's string instrument, there's percussive instrument, and there's this voice of the Levites screaming heart out, and David dancing before the Lord. That's a huge production. And I'm not saying every worship service should be like that. I mean, those worship services will be for like dedication of the temple, for grand moments. It goes grand like that. But for routine moments, you don't have that all the time taking place. So we just have to understand that we have a huge latitude as to what we can use to worship God.
And I've enjoyed this varied expression of God being worshipped in the grand orchestra, in those quiet moments, through the hymns, through the choruses. And I also like the part about changing the words to suit you at some point.
Yeah.
As we wind down today, what would you like us to remember about true worship?
Well, I mean, if there's anything we've said, that worship is the offering of ourselves. So if you say, I don't like singing, I don't like dancing, then offer yourself to God. Worship Him with yourself and worship Him with your words. Say words out of your mouth that are endearing and that really show your heart desire to God. And if you want to do a grand production to worship God, do all of it. But let everything be done in decency and in order. And just know that we're not doing it to please ourselves. We're not doing it to feel good about ourselves or our church. We're doing it because we are overwhelmed by the presence of God. We'll catch you again.
That is all the time we have for today. Join us for the next episode at the same time next week. Thank you for watching.